다 냠len 탐지 게 통말라 잡선 로와 당 샘제바 니그 다 대라 당보 잡선 로의 전는 가성 공도 휴 선발이 되니 다다다 샘제베게 소리대라 좋아요.
The commencement of all our practice as Buddhists is refuge and bodhicitta. Yesterday, Rinpoche explained in detail about the refuge, and today he will deal with the developing the awakening mind or the bodhicitta in connection with the Bodhisattva-Vows.
샘제바 대라 다 송축제 샘름보체 송주대 되네 그런 송축의 샘송주 다대 샘제바다 직바리 샘제바는 다대 송축 샘름보체 송주대 되네 그런 송축조도 샘기 송축제 샘름보체 라소바 대 직바리 되네 대라 되네 담보 송축제 샘름보체 등 아론 송라 토퍼르사발라 되네 근조 송축의 샘당 단담 송축의 샘 송주 니요래 근조 송축의 샘 송주대 가정 되네 근지 야마름보지인다니 되네 송주상가 담바 휴송아 양자를 까말라 헬라니 되네 송주상가 담바 예바 휴송아 다 된다와 라마동 초가라 때네 되네 나루게 제라다 송주상가 담바 톱송 라소바 상네 효주 다 대라 근조 송주게 샘송아래.
So this awakening mind, called the bodhicitta, then is the foundation of our motivation. And Rinpoche said that this thing called semche is none other than bodhicitta. This is our motivation. So this precious bodhicitta then is divided into the relative and the absolute bodhicitta. As has been explained by Kunzik Shama Rinpoche, and also the vows Rinpoche gave yesterday, the explanations in detail at Kamala Shila involving the formal request and receiving of the Bodhisattva vows in connection with the ritual and so on. This is connected with the relative bodhicitta.
근데 송주 상가담바데 양 깝깝서 나랑가 라만잘 마탐나 양 되는 단전난 칼라 송지 송주 삼바 요요선에 송주 상가담바 라나 양 송주 상가담바 톱용 송 양나 땡 제발 징근다니 나랑 송주 상가담바 라나 양 톱용 송 되는 영어 깝깝서 송주 상가담바 톱 차니 되는 송주 상가담바 때세 영근도와 배낭가라 세당글에 사팔라 소팔테니 때시 송주 상가담바 영근도 대 영성나요 양자를 나란 것에 송지 송주 선문다는 나로 송주 상가담바 쇼요 산에 송주 상가담바 라나야 양 담바야 카소 토그리.
Having received then the formal commitment or vows of the bodhicitta, then Rinpoche said sometimes when there is no official representative of the teachings in the form of a lama around, one can visualize in the sky in front of us the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas, their entourage, and then we can retake the vows of the Bodhisattva by generating in our mind the Bodhisattva attitude and visualize receiving the vows once again. Sometimes faults or impurities creep into our vow of bodhisattva, such as the stains caused by anger and so on. So having thus stained the purity of one's bodhisattva ordination, one can again retake the vows with the same visualization as described with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the sky in front. And in this way, one continuously replenishes or refreshes the vow. If actually one has not met a Lama, then if a Lama is not present, then it's also permissible to take the Bodhisattva vow in this way. it's not necessary to have received it from a Lama first. One can simply develop the Bodhicitta attitude in this way.
The Lama yo me ke chati. Then penna ta Europe tabu chile yo na. Then Lama zani tana pet top masong. Lama zani ji togu mundu. Then dawe ki nela yo na. Then songju sanga damba ngarong showa yin dabo sona. Then ngaru la songju sanga damba togu yo de song yo de. Yang jang ngarang ke me jamba chel pa nang gu na. Ta damba te yo mari damba jen te yo marwa. Then nang togu mundu. Then ngarang ke Lama sana yin zi mini shogu mundu. Damba jen na te ne.
For example, in certain parts of Europe, where there has been no Lama or representative of the teachings in this way, then one can take the Bodhisattva-Vow by generating the attitude with the appropriate visualization. However, one cannot pass the Bodhisattva-Vow on in this way, because there is no lineage from which one has received it, therefore it cannot be passed on.
Tendang songchu ke sam songche, tendang ngarong song sam ke nilung dala meng taga des. Tene sam ke nilung dala, tene saja chenpo tong, zokpa chenpo tong, oma chenpo tong, shirabja paro sambala, sopa meng mongbo yore. Tene songchu ke sam shepe kapso, sam dala, tendang songchu ke sam meng taga dos. Tene ngarong song ke shene tong, hong tong la sopa gamba la tene, sam ke nilung ngendo choke dewa.
As regards to the absolute bodhicitta then, the absolute bodhicitta is another word for the natural state of minds. Mind's natural intrinsic nature. And this is revealed through the teachings known as Mahamudra or Mahāti or the Madhyamika, the Great Middle Way. So in order to realize these, then one progresses along the path of the mental tranquility meditation, Shine, and the penetrating vision, Laktong. And this penetrating vision leads one into insight into the natural state of mind, which is none other than absolute bodhicitta.
Kazong Rinpoche ga nangjo te dong, kamala shala nangjo te, tangji te, papa lodu ne je yung, samo taji ki jepa te re. Te nangwa ke cholla, tene memba songjo ke san dong, jupa songjo ke san ni, tu chik char do damba nanggo yo re. Ti hyowe ke tenja gongso la, chepar yo ma re, la dong, me dong, lama yan dong, lo dong, kanri yo na yang, tene ti ke damba te, to ke yin, tene song yo re.
So, regarding the bodhicitta then, there are two lineages that Rinpoche mentioned the day before yesterday, and these pass respectively through the great masters Nagarjuna and Asanga. Rinpoche mentioned specifically the transmission of the bodhicitta called the lineage of the profound transmission, and with regards to the wishing bodhicitta and the applied bodhicitta, the two sections of this Zamotaweju, or lineage of profound vision, then this transmission of the bodhicitta can be received by men, divine beings, nagas, and so on, all sentient beings without exception.
Penna damba de top chane, dige sungza de la, ta tomji penna sungza jeba dang, teni dupan rabo yores. Sungza jeba ga ondo sena, teni penna samotaji ge damba de top chane, teni zawe tongwa le nyesho tamba yores. Yenga ga tongwa jebcho yores. Tā te tāṃ chī chik du du na tā ngā rāṃ tsōng ka pē na ñāṃ sā lēng bē kāp sō sēng jīn lū pāng wā tē tā tī nō na tāṃ chī ndū gu yō rē. Pē na sēng jīn lū pāng wā sōng na tēni tā ngā rāṃ tsōng la mē chī kē nē pā chī sōng na tā ngā la kō rōng kē nē pā shūk chēmbō chī sōng tā nī zōng tē nē kō rōng la nē pā tē pā chāp tō gu ndō na ngā tsā nī chāp gu mē yīn sā. Corona Pembaji drop Tom Nayanga Sani Drogami, Tendawa Songandu, Tendawa Tapa Tenga Yore, that day Ben Senjin Lupona to do that, Domba Tomji Tiggin Jing Drog Yore. The Dubajan Aron to Teres, Yamsulanjity.
So as concerning this lineage of the profound vision transmission of the bodhicitta, then, with regards to the actual practice and what is to be observed, Rinpoche said that this can be considered in an extensive way and a concise way. As for the extensive or long way, the vows themselves consist of 20 root failings of the bodhicitta vow and 8 auxiliary or branch failings. Considering the same practice in a abbreviated or concise way, basically it is to abandon any sentient being without exception. For example, if someone causes us harm, then the failing of the bodhicitta vow is for us to keep this harm in our heart, and then should the chance arise to benefit this being, we withhold our bodhicitta attitude from him, or that is to say, we completely abandon him.
다 senjintenga pen taga min da wa tendi tena da sidu gi chala ngarang shedang de shet sarwa kala ta ngarang songju sang damba yo ta tenda wa yin rimbo la ngarang song na songju sang damba jigire ta nga shakpa si gu gu ta ti song no pa pan pang gu gu da wa som ten yi jan da wa dan tendi china tendi jeng yo ma le.
So we ourselves, as ordinary sentient beings who are still under the influence of the disturbing emotions to a greater or lesser degree, such as pride, jealousy, and so on, it's very likely that such an attitude will arise in our minds. And so, if we harbor this kind of attitude during the day, and then thereby forgetting our bodhicitta vow, then at the evening time, for example, reflecting on this and seeing the fault, seeing our fault of the Bodhisattva vows, one can purify this by recitation of the 100-syllable mantra of Dorje Sempa.
Tela tene tene ngarang jepa hi yong tene tambo tsawe tongwa nyesho tela tene jarbola jong nipa nga lembola jong nyewa nga mang parbala jong nyewa ji yore tene te jarbola jong nyewa jojete pena jarboga songchu sanga damba te lang yo na digi nipa nga te parche jarbola yonggen dos. Then young Lembo don't Mong Parala Cap so younger yore. Lembo chege, then it's on to Sanga Damba the Huyona, Lembo Coron and Jong Niva Nate, Parche Lembo Conala Yungando. Young Cap so Jarboton, Mong Parala, younger yore. Then this song.
Considering the exposition of the Bodhisattva vows in their extensive form, the 20 root and 8 branch failings, then Rinpoche doesn't expect us to remember them all now, but to hear them and have them explained. Then at a later time, when we hear them again, then this will serve as a good cause that we remember them and absorb them. So these 20 vows are divided into classes appropriate to the conduct of kings, ministers, and normal beings such as ourselves. A king has 5 root failings or faults. A minister has 5, and a normal being has 8. Rinpoche explained that although the king has 5, these conditions will usually only arise to a king, but it's also possible they may arise to a minister and an ordinary being. Likewise, the minister who has 5 faults that he must watch and guard carefully, usually these will only arise to a minister, but they may arise to a king and normal beings, likewise with the normal beings.
Lagang jingbe tenga, yana kunda jingbe ke tenga, yana chepan borwe tenga. Ten rawe pekha yana, te jarbo chege, te koncho lan chepa peko mo ngarang la gogendo, se lang sang na, te thangbo re, jarbo lan jongnya thangbo re. Nipa te la chu pangwa sang yore, chu pangwa sa na jarbo ke songji ke songbe ke tikpa chenpo tong, tikpa chung chung ke chu tangji, chu yang taba ri menduk. Koronga kaga chine, te chu nyamsa ling gugu mundu, te chu yang tapa mares. Ka china, kandawo nangyona, te nipa te. Tene, songji ge jisu shupe, ge long tong, ge tsor tong, ane ma tong, ten rawa tangchi la, tene, chepa chepa tong, chim chepa tong, ten rawa china, te sumba te. Tene, yiba te la, chong mepa nga, sepa te yiba te. Tene yibaterwa ti chomma pa nga sepa ti yibaterwa tene ngaba te la lokta sepa res chu dhamna kanyo pento yo mare nansong ge neri kan yo mare nyawa yo mare songji je shankang yo mare sene labju ti lokta ri ta ti nga te parchya jarbo lan jung yo res ti nga te jarbu ge tendawa le sa na jarbo khoron la songju sang damba ti tene jeng do yo re.
So the 5 imperfections of the Bodhisattva-Vow, the breaking of the Bodhisattva-Vow, which occur normally or are likely to occur to a king that he must guard against. First is the misappropriation of offerings. For example, in the king's power is the ability to collect goods and money and so on for the offering and restoration and support of the 3 jewels in such form as support to the Sangha, construction of temples, images and so on. Then to receive these and not to carry them on to their destined source is the first bodhisattva failing. The second is to abandon the Mahayana or Hinayana Dharma, thinking that it is not a pure teaching, and in this way one rejects the Dharma. Likewise, the third is where one persecutes followers of the teaching, such as the community of monks and nuns, the Sangha, either by killing them, taking their life, or putting them in prison. Fourthly are the 5 inexpiable acts, and fifthly, wrong views on the part of the monarch concerning the law of causality, the benefits of practicing virtue, and so on. The qualities of the Buddha fields and the sufferings of samsara, the existence of inferior realms and the existence of heaven and so on. Then these wrong views make up the 5th failing.
Lembo lan jong nyewa nga te yang, ta jarbo lan jong nyewa nga te chikpa re. Tige lokta ke tangdo, ta nga ba te lokta re wa. Lokta ke tangdo, teni chungba, jong, chungcher, chungdar, yungkhor se ta. Pena mesang chek ne, teni chungcher chenbu ka pardo la, ta te si chungcher mombo yo ba, ya mesang kashi yo, mesang chek yemba, teni chungcher chenbo yemba, ta te ganga chikpa re. Kandri yena chek teni mo damne, mo ndawo tangne te mepa che ni njom song na, ta te yang lembo lang nipa te lokta ke teni te yo re, te membo jarbo to chikpa re.
concerning the 5 root failings of a minister and his Bodhisattva vow, then they are the same as the previous ones Rinpoche mentioned for the king, with the exception that the 5th one, wrong views, then is understood in the following way, that a minister, by virtue of his position in an advisory capacity to the king, uses his influence to suppress or to make war against, first, in ascending order, a family in the countryside, or secondly, a small village, or larger, a town, larger still, a city, or finally, an entire country. So, a minister who is violating his bodhisattva precepts uses his ministerial position to influence the monarch of the country to wage war against any one of these communities, thereby breaking his vow. And these are the 5 root failings of the minister with regard to the bodhicitta vows.
Mang parbalan junga ji samare. Mang parbalan junga ji de ta tangbo teni pena me ta chula ma yu pa ge kongso chula te se ga ge do. Ta chu ge ten yang da ba hi ge min do. Ten da we kongso che la teni tangbo ni teni dong ba ni ge ten la so pa mang bo hi na. Teni korong zha ne teni da ti chu te ta ne nga shou pe ge min do la so pa sang ge wa. Ten da wa sang na teni te korong chu te la ka an do gun do wa te chong nga rang chong te lap to go yo ma nga rang chu song chu sang ge dang ba ne ge yo de. Te dang bo de de. Dang bo de de. Ni pa de la teni yong men ga hi ji tik pa chen bu ge chu la ga ne song chu sang ge jie pa la ga gen do. Song chu sang ba la pa la ga gen do. Ta nga song chu sang ge jie pa de song chu sang ge dang ba yo song chu sang ge jie pa jie ge yin sang ba kong sa hi yo na. Yang de sa lan ro ne che rang song chu sang ge jie pa za ni ji to ge ma de yang ring bo ka ba dang me pa mong bu ge che la song chu sang ge jie pa ji gu ge de. Dele 저런 년두도 랑저가 라나 쇼나 나루 샤와동 대와 토근도 딘저기래 된다와 람나 코론 송추상가 담바테 송추상가 람테 까안로건도 와 된다와 람나 대 나롱 총가 자동 니바데래.
For the normal beings such as ourselves, there are 8 branch or 8 root downfalls of the Bodhisattva vow. The first is, for example, a person who is not well versed in the Dharma, but has an affinity to the Dharma, then still doesn't know very much about it. Taking such a vessel as this, then one begins to speak extensively about emptiness and so on, thus discouraging the person from the practice. This is the first root downfall for ordinary people, speaking about emptiness to an unfit vessel, a person who is not ripened to receive the teachings of emptiness. Secondly, when one is belonging to the Mahayana family, then taking, for example, such a person, a new vessel, then one discourages them from developing the Mahayana attitude with such arguments as that you would never be able to do this, it's not possible, it's too long, you would have to work for kalpas and kalpas, and in this way one discourages a person from developing the Mahayana and thus breaks one's bodhicitta attitude. Likewise, one can disparage the Mahayana and praise the Sravaka and Prateka yanas of the lesser vehicle, saying that this is beneficial and so on and so forth. Then speaking in this way, discouraging the Mahayana and for a lesser vehicle, then this is speaking in this way is a breach of one's bodhisattva vows.
Ya manga hiji teni gelung ga damba tsurum ga damba na zola tini teni da ngarang pen gelung jina ga gendu gelung ga damba song na ga gendu ten dawa ga kongso yo na Then Davala, Cheranga Galunga Damba Sonala, Pentokan Yomare, Nintuga Lam Davares, Dele Charang, Sonju Sanga Jepaki, Senking Jachambo China, Cheron Pento Tindawa Chegre, Lana, Young Ala Zaton Poyo. Galunga Dambala Kagdu, Galunga Damba Sona, Chang Pentokan Yomare, Cheron Nintuga Lambres, Dele Cheron Sonju Sanga Lapa Jepakina, De Gagri. Sonju Sambe Jepa Lapa Jipara. Sonju Sambe Jepa Gina, De Gagri, Galunga Damba Panjik Jigri, Shake Jigindu. O Tendawa China, Young Aron Son, Zaton Pogo, De Sumbare. Young Gashi Jege, Ben Chula, Mepatone, then Nientu Dang, Tikpa member, Chu tell Young Tapa, Lam Yomare, Lam Young Tapa again, River Togamare. Nye Mumba Tamje, Bang Togamare, Lasopa, Tendawa Lamna, then Aron Sona, then Zaton Yabati did it.
The third and fourth points are to discourage someone with affinity towards the ordination, such as the bhikshu. Then if one is drawn towards this way of practice, then to speak against this and say that there is no benefit, that this is the way of the Shravakas and Pratekas, then and one praises the Mahayana and discourages the person in this way. This is the third branch failing. The fourth is the inverse. If one with faith in the Dharma has an affinity towards the Hinayana, then one says that this is of no benefit. Then likewise one breaks one's bodhisattva ordination.
Then Jendo, Naron Son Hoto Tamjil and Lago Yovas. Then Bena Naron Son Trumta Tamjig Nona Yenayum, then Gelu get Trumta de Desi Yabo Mari, Gaji de Yabore, Sacha de Yabore, Nima de Yabo Mari, Tenda. Then Tenda de Tani Labjo Mari, Naron Lago Yovas. Then Depena. Sonju Sambege, Damba Shepe Kapso Yang, then the Yiba de Dedi Duas. Then Son Hogayon, Zaton Juji Shepe Kapso Yang, Jake Dedi do Yore. Ying Chula, Mepa Sage de Yang Zaton Jujigan Jake Res. Telatine, so Jake de Yapore, so Jake de Dupore, Zaning Aron Kaga Labju Yomar, Naron Yomlinka, Sipate Yomlinzi, Kakaru Zona, then Yapo Yore, Dipa Yomare.
So generally, as a side remark here, Rinpoche says that generally to disparage anyone about anything in their Dharma practice is not good. And here are the root causes. Rinpoche explains in the third and fourth vows. Likewise, there's scriptural authority for this in the 14 root vows of the Vajrayana ordination. So generally it's not good to discourage anyone from doing anything in the Dharma.
Yang Narana Ganlung, Corona Ganlung Damba Yomare, and Davo, Dendava Lamna, Kanzola Mepazevare, Kanzola Mepazena, Young Aron Sona, Zaton Naba de Pogoyore. Yang Niepadon Kurte Chido, Tangala, Niepa Chembo Toyu, Majing Gala, Kurte Shok Chembo Zi, Dendava Soni, then Tomba Nigga Tam, Matona, Tanga Saja Chembo Tam, Matona, Saja Chembo Tam, Tosong. Nga sang maji na yung nga sang jedi yo dawa teni nga la ngen shi me na yung nga la ngen shi yo re dawa tenri lam na teni de za tong drupa re yo re.
The fifth root downfall for ordinary beings is through any of the emotional defilements, especially jealousy. Then one praises oneself and disparages others. For example, I am a practitioner of the Mahayana, he is a practitioner of the Hinayana, a lesser vehicle. Or for example, I am holding this ordination of a bhikshu, he has no ordination at all, and so on. So thus praising oneself and disparaging others, then one commits the fifth root violation. The sixth, likewise, is to tell any spiritual lies with regards to one's spiritual attainments, such as the understanding of Mahamudra or describing one's own enlightenment, and documenting this with evidence of one's own clairvoyance and supernatural powers. Thus doing this, one commits the sixth root downfall.
Me koron tsane yapo mundu cherang la keja dukja hegendu cherang ga tando sawa dukja drogendu la sopa den dawa lamne me koron ga pembo tigi koron ga yopo tele teni chepa pogundu wa den dawa jina ngarong chong za dong demba pogu yore teni pena gom jem dong kin ge gelong teni tendri pena tendri ge gelong tamji ge jakan chou song na koma ko wa dang chou chopa la sopa Tendawa China, they are on some Zadong Jepa Pogo. That day, Monk Parpal and Jonga Ji, so you did it.
Setting people against each other by talk which divides them, engaging in such calumnious slander and speaking badly about one to another, and thus turning their attitudes against each other, is the seventh root to downfall. The eighth is the misappropriation of any of the property of the Sangha, misusing offerings and so on.
Tate Jobji Reva, Jarbolan Joanga, Mamparvan Joanga, Jotitana, Lembolan Joanga, Mamparvalan Joanga Ji, the Jobji, they time do, then Sentin Lu Pangwa, they don't jogores. Then Sentin get Tanzani drum motapa, that day near Shutamari. Sentin Tanzani drogamundu. Sentin get Tangaro drop tokendo, Tani drop gagamundu, Tani drogamundu. Did our Sena, some Sena. Diga, Tenipana, Tonga Tomchi, Maru Semke, Tremba Tomji, Teniga, the Sonjusam Dambanjigio Mares, Bena, Maru Tambo Semke, Train, Teni. Lu ma nige dige le sa di le de sa ne paro po ga le de na sa nrup sa ne de nga ro song ju sang da ma ji yo.
So 5 faults to guard against for the king, 5 for the minister, and 8 for subjects or ordinary beings such as ourselves leads to a total of 18. The 19th is the concise practice of the vow of Bodhicitta, that is to say, to abandon any sentient being. This is the 19th vow. And the 20th is to consciously, in one's attitude, feel that one is not capable or not orient oneself towards helping sentient beings. Then this is the 20th root downfall. By simply having this attitude that one cannot help beings and one is useless and so on and so forth in the mind is not an actual breaking of the bodhicitta ordination, but if one applies this through one's speech and one's body, then the actual vows are broken. Considering the extensive treatment of the 20 root and the 8 branch, now Rinpoche says there are 8 branch vows, and it's not necessary to discuss these as they're finer vows, and they are included in the 20 root vows.
Tadi Songju Sangha Damba Ngarong Songla Yo Chadu Ta Nyom So Lembe Kapsa Kandi Gugundu Ta Chu Nyomling Tamji Ge Thoma Tela Tene Kalong Songju Changwa Ji Samba Gugundu Tene Tambo Songji Chudo Chojin Chona La Songju Bada Da Na Japsun Je Tsekni Ge Japsun Rowa Songne Da Ge Jin Su Ji Pe Sanam Ji Rola Pensa Songji Ro Par Hyo Sonne Ta 다 나랑게 생진 탕지 송지제 공풍 토퍼리사 제여서도 다 나랑 다단다 냠린세 바예 산다 문이 냠슬랜베 갈라 송주산데 다 덴디 냠린제 고레 그런 송주산데 지산.
So having received the Bodhisattva vow, having generated it in our minds, then how, after having received the teachings, then how do we practice it? Rinpoche said that foremost, at the beginning of all of our Dharma activity, then, for example, by the recitation of the 4-line prayer, Sanjay Chudan Soji Chu Namla Changchu Padu Dat Nisa Tunji Dagi Jin Sodi Pe So Namdi, and so on, then one takes refuge and generates the bodhicitta. That is to say, one engages in the practice of virtue for the benefit of all sentient beings without exception, to temporarily establish them on a level away from suffering, and ultimately to lead them to the level of Buddhahood. And in this way, by cultivating the supreme bodhicitta as our motivation, then this is the practice of a bodhisattva.
Then 대지에서 재미 예예고는 생진탕지라 면람되고도 생진탕지 대화동 대외조지 되는 되는 선바치매봐 동한동 동한지 조조지 되는 hin지치매봐 동한매배 대화 되는 가와치미 예린 초동동 잡아도 되는 동형치매봐래 이 재미 예예고는 생진탕지라 면람되고요.
Following the recitation of the Sanjay Chudang, or the refuge in bodhicitta, then Rinpoche advises to the recitation of the 4 immeasurables. And these 4 immeasurables, called the Tseme Shi, are the 4 lines, classically Simchen, Tamche, Dewa, Dang, and so on. That is to say, demonstrating immeasurable love for all beings, wishing that they would be happy. Compassion, by wishing that they be away from suffering and its roots. Immeasurable joy, that they be established in the happiness which is away from sorrow. And immeasurable equanimity, that they may rest in this way. And in this way, by chanting these 4 immeasurables, then that's it.
잠조던 생기 재미적인 melon데 잘네 되는 단전 남가라 자요라서 담지 요야바 띵아롱나 템티 발상 가송 라요로와 담보 잠주가 가라 송지 주겐데 라서바 요요 나림바 디 가송 라바디.
Having taken refuge and cultivating the 4 immeasurable thoughts with our bodhicitta, then we do the visualization of the dissolution of the field of refuge, as Rinpoche explained yesterday, that this dissolves into light and is absorbed into ourselves, becoming inseparable from these.
자신 제페제가 합사도 순사 자동 탐지양 소소를 요래. 되니 다다다 두세 탐는 다른 때에서양 까마 가시기처럼 영린지 성성도 옛날다 두세 조송되는 영린지 마송.
So this has been an explanation of the Bodhisattva vows and conduct and practice in accordance with the Zamotawechu, or the lineage of the profound vision. Both the extensive and concise versions. The other tradition is that of the vast conduct, which Rinpoche has not explained. It's important that we remember this is for the lineage of the profound vision. So normally we have a period of practice, but today it seems we have run out of time, and so for this reason Rinpoche said we're not practicing.